Hello everyone, and today we are back for another Loomian Legacy PvP video. And in this video, I'm going to be teaching you on how to play Loomian Legacy PvP and why I make certain decisions in my videos. So, I've made a ton of PvP videos for the last 3.5 years, and I have learned a lot since then, and something that a lot of people don't talk about is the in-game IQ, or the game states, the situations, the possible outcomes for every turn of every Loomian Legacy battle. And that's what this video is going to be about. I'm going to be showcasing 3 battles where I'm going to be teaching y'all and showing y'all the game state, the situation, the teams that I've used, the type of teams I've used, and I'm going to teach y'all on what y'all should do in that certain situation. Now, I'll be talking about different game states as well. Like, I'm going to talk about the plays I did, the plays I should have done, and the plays that my opponent does as well. So, that out of the way, let's head right into the video. Alright, we're into battle number 1 for the video, and this is part of my Terraclaw showcase video, where I was using Vital Jab Terraclaw. If you look at the 2 teams, my opponent's team, it's a meta team with Scorching Skin Crackalola, Flash and Flee Luminami, Wobbliss, Ronsador, and a cheese option in Avatros. But the biggest threat on Leono Crazy's team is that Borak. Borak is a Loomian that hits really hard, has the Boast ability, and 110 melee attack. And these Loomians often run items like Power Cuffs or Specialty Gloves to increase their damage. So they are always able to deal a lot of damage. And if you look at my team, between Terraclaw, Infernix, Duskit, Gremmuline, Eliguana, Tatub, and Zulog, none of my Loomians can safely switch into a Borak hit. Not even my defensive Gremmuline. So, Borak is definitely the most threatening Loomian on his team. Another threat is definitely the Ronsador, because the Ronsador can deal a lot of damage. It hits very hard, and it hits all my Loomians for super effective damage, besides Eliguana and Terraclaw. So, I'm going to have to be very careful between both the Borak and the Ronsador. Not to mention that Scorching Skin on Crackalola can absolutely screw up a couple of my melee attackers, which are the Terraclaw and the Tatub. Now, the first thing you should do for every battle, I don't do this for the videos, is to list what the opposing team has. So, for example, his team is Crackalola, Luminami, Borak, Wobblisk, Ronsador. I'm doing it on my phone right now. Avatros and Eliguana as his team. Because listing on what your opponent actually has is really important, so you know how to game plan for the future. So, what were the Loomians I actually brought to this battle? So, as you can see, these are the Loomians that I actually brought. I used Tatub as my lead, Eliguana as the second, and as you can see, I leave Gremmuline and Infernix behind, because Gremmuline doesn't do good in this battle. Even though Poison Virus could be good, Ronsador can get rid of them, and Infernix just kind of dies to everything. Dies to Wobbliss, dies to Crack. Crack always walls it. Just not a good matchup for Infernix. And I lead Tatub to potentially get some offensive pressure early, and it's to not let Borak get in the game immediately. So I'm trying to anti-lead the Borak coming in. That's why I led with Tatub in this situation. So let's get to the beginning of the battle, and his lead was actually the Ronsador. I wasn't sure if he was actually anti-leading the Tatub or not, but he does lead with Ronsador, because Ronsador actually has a pretty good matchup into the rest of my team. So I have quite a few options here. The options I could have here is I could switch into Terraclaw. Terraclaw has very good range defense, so it makes sense to go into that on Ronsador, but Terraclaw also can't get its HP back. And there's also Eliguana. Those are basically the only 2 options I have. I could stay in predicting Ronsador to switch out, but there's no reason to risk that on turn 1 of the game, considering that Tatub is quad weak to Muck Blast. So the play I would do here is I would go into Eliguana, soak the hit, and then try to Flash and Flee out. That's what I would do in this situation. Let's see if I actually did that for the video, though. So, as you can see, I go into Eliguana, which is the play I would have done in this situation, looking back at this. It's been a while since I watched this battle, and he goes for the safe play. Probably the best play you could do in that situation is Goop Spout. Goop Spout is there to poison opposing Loomians, and this even includes Stratosaur, who has the Toxic Filter ability, which Goop Spout can go through. But, thankfully, I switched into Eliguana because of the Mysterious Dust. This Eliguana had Mysterious Dust, and this was a Mudslide variant to get rid of hazards. So no progress was made, and I was able to get into a range tank to pivot out. So, there's quite a few options I can click here, but something I've noticed about his team is that he potentially has no Flash and Flee immunities. Now, his Eliguana could be a Flash and Flee immunity, but I don't know that yet. He has a Zip Zap immunity in Borak, so I definitely don't want to click Zip Zap to get Borak a free switch. So Flash and Flee is the safest play. Now, yes, I know it's the green arrows, so Flash and Flee is probably the best play to make anyway, but I'm predicting my opponent to go into Borak here. So I'm clicking Flash and Flee. Now, I'm not sure if that's what actually happens. I assume Ronsador switches. I assume into Borak. Yep, into Borak. So I made the right read again. And as you can see, the Borak gets the boost, Flash and Flee, deal a little bit of damage. And then, personally, I think in this situation, I go into Top here, just try to prevent Borak from doing something. So yeah, as I did in the video, I go right in the Top. And again, I'm in a very good position. And now I know that he also has the Borak. So now we know that he has both the Borak and the Ronsador, which is good to know. Good to list down. Now, do I try to predict something else coming in? The thing that's scary is that Crackalola has Scorching Skin. I do have Wonder Herb on Tata, but I gotta still watch out for potential Scorching Skin bird. So, I feel like the best play in this position is either Jungle Jitsu or Poison, although if I make the wrong read here, I'm screwed. I feel like Poison is the safest play to make here, because if Crackalola comes in, I could just be in trouble right off the bat. But Jungle Jitsu does do more damage to the incoming Crackalola, but it does give me a chance to get Scorching Skin Bird. So, personally, I feel like the right play is to Poison, even though Megachomp is a potential threat here. So, I want to predict Crackalola, but I don't go for the Poison play. Instead, I go for the Jungle Jitsu play, and Crackalola does come in. Do I avoid the 30% Scorching Skin? So, I personally don't think Jungle Jitsu was the right play there. I think I should have went for the Poison, but it's easier to say that when you're looking back at this, but when you're in the battle, it's easy to look at misplays like this. It's always good to rewatch some of your old battles to see what you could do different. In that situation, I would have just Poisoned, but you never know because a lot of Crackalolas have been running the Mysterious Dust item as of late. So, I do get lucky and avoid the 30%. In this situation, I just go into Duskit. There's no other play to go here. Terraclaw can get burned. Eliguana doesn't do much, and I outspeed it. Zulong, I don't want Zulong to take unnecessary chip. Duskit is the best play to make in this situation, because I could potentially set up a Hasten on the spot. So, I go into Duskit here. Let's see what he does. He actually doubles into Borak. So, he actually makes the right play there. He actually predicts me switching. And I go into Duskit. So, good play by the opponent. That's something that you also got to keep in mind, is that your opponent is also trying to read you as well. So, I was just reading him as he was just going to attack a Raging Flame on Crackalola, but he was able to read that and then go immediately into Borak. That is something that your opponent is going to do all the time. So, we now know that he has Crackalola, Borak, and Ronsador. So, now that Borak is back in the game, I'm kind of not sure what to do in this situation. I go for the attacking play, trying to deal damage, but he feels threatened by it, so he switches back at the Crackalola. I don't think he was trying to read me. I think that he did not want to soak a hit. He didn't think he had enough gas to KO Duskit. And I take advantage of the situation, getting Crackalola very low on HP. So, I just attack with Psycho Blast again, not risking the KO. He switches out again. He switches into Eliguana. So now, while just attacking Psycho Blast with Duskit, I was able to reveal an extra Loomian, and I was able to reveal the Eliguana. So now, we know 4 of his 5 Loomians. The only Loomians that he could potentially have left is Luminami. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Was Luminami, Wobelisk, and Avatros. Now, with the Eliguana on the field, I think the best play is to go Tata. But I don't go Tata. I actually go Eliguana, which is interesting. But I blocked Zip Zap. So, he was going for the Zip Zap play there. I don't think I would have done that play. Like, even though this play worked out, I would have actually went for Tata there. But you know what? It worked out. I was able to block the Zip Zap. And now my Eliguana is kind of in limbo land, because I run a fast Eliguana. So the play I go for is Flash and Flee. Because not only is this not a bad play, because if I'm able to get the Flash and Flee off, I will now know that Flash and Flee is indeed free. And if this is a secret ability Eliguana, it won't matter because he'll pivot off of me first, meaning I can get the momentum next time. So it's the best play to make anyway, and he is not a secret ability Eliguana, meaning I'm able to know that Flash and Flee is now indeed free. And I go into Tata because if he goes for Flash and Flee now, if he goes Flash and Flee on the Eliguana, I'm able to block Flash and Flay. So going into Top here is always the best play, because Eliguana never does that much damage. But it goes for the Mudslide, which does a whopping 14 damage. Not sure why the Eliguana Mudslided in that situation, but I think he did it to predict me staying in, just try to get damage on Eliguana. But the thing is, Mudslide's only 50 power, and, you know, Eliguanas are not known to hit very hard, so I'm kind of not sure why you Mudslide it there, but hey, Eliguanas can do that. You gotta be ready for the unexpected. And I click Jungle Jutsu again, because if I could KO the Crackalola and get it out of the picture, that would be huge. That's the reason I click Jungle Jutsu there. Not to mention that if I click Timber Thrash, Ronsador quad resist it, the Crackalola could live, and I could take another Scorching Skin burn. Borak is weak to it, and even if he has Luminami in the back, or Avatros in the back, it doesn't matter. It's better than just click Jungle Jutsu anyway, because it's guaranteed, because the biggest threat is Crackalola, and I don't want to get Scorching Skin burned. So that's why I went for the Jungle Jutsu there, to try to immediately OHKO it. He just goes into Ronsador, which is going to take a lot of damage. Even though Ronsador is a toxic type and resists Tatub, Ronsador is very frail and takes a whole lot of damage there. He is one hit away from being into OHKO range from Tatub, which is huge. So now with Ronsador in the second time, I feel like the Ronsador could switch. But again, I'm in the power play. All my Lumians are near full health, and I still have Eliguana and Terraclaw alive. I think I just go back Eliguana. There's no reason why you don't just go Eliguana here. Yeah, you go Eliguana here. Terraclaw is risky because, again, the Goop Spout Poison, when with Eliguana, it's guaranteed. Even if it Muck Blasts, the do or die damage puts Ronsador in range for Tatub, but he doesn't attack. He switches back into Borak. And now, a big play comes up here. Borak is now back in the game. I don't know what item the Borak is. As much as I want to Flash and Flay from Eliguana, it's risky, because if the Borak is Specialty Boots, he will outspeed the Eliguana, and I will lose my Eliguana, which will make it a lot harder to actually switch into Ronsador. So, I now gotta predict, is he gonna click Rogue Assault, or is he gonna click Earthquake? I predict him in this situation to click Earthquake, because it makes sense. His Borak has not done any damage for the whole game, and I don't have any Lumians that are immune to Earthquake. So Earthquake is just a free play here. I go into Terraclaw to soak the Earthquake. It's risky, because if he does go for a Rogue Assault, my Terraclaw is DEAD dead. But I think it's the right play to make in this situation. So I go into Terraclaw as my opponent goes for Earthquake. Now, that wasn't the right time to make a read. So I think that was the right play for my opponent to make. But he could have made the read and been in a pretty good situation here. But again, he saw that I had Dusket, which is extremely risky. He doesn't want to waste a move there. And that damage from Borak makes me now realize that this is a Specialty Gloves Borak. It's good to think about that for later in the match. So this is indeed a Specialty Gloves Borak. He is now stuck into Earthquake, which I get a free Parasitize off. I mean, he could potentially go into... I will say he could potentially go into Crackalola, but it doesn't matter because I like to keep Terraclaw healthy. And if Terraclaw gets burned, it doesn't matter as much because I have Wonder Herb on Tatub. I can always click that and get Terraclaw back going later in the match. So, Parasitize is the best play here. And he doesn't go into Crackalola. Instead, he goes into Luminami, which now we know my opponent's entire team. We now know that he has Crackalola, Luminami, Ronsador, Borak, and Eliguana. So, we now know what he has. Now, I think the best play to make here is Tatub. Even if he does predict the play, Tatub is the best play to make in this situation. I feel like the Frost Beam is coming in. But, let's see. We go into Tatub as it goes for the Flash and Flee. Try to get some free momentum. Tatub comes in, blocks the momentum. Huge play in that situation. And, again, I'm clicking Jungle Jitsu because the threat of Crackalola is that scary that Jungle Jitsu is always the best play. But, my opponent has realized that I'm not clicking Timber Thrash, so he felt safe to stay into Jungle Jitsu and take the hit really well. That doesn't even mention the fact that Luminami could probably live a Timber Thrash, because let's be honest, it's Luminami. Luminami can live pretty much any hit in the game, and here comes the incoming Mega Chomp, which will deal about half of my HP. So, I'm forced to switch here. I can't stand a Luminami. In this situation, now that I saw Mega Chomp, honestly, I don't know. There's a couple options. You could go Dusket, or you could go Terraclaw. I think Terraclaw is the best play you can make in this situation. But I don't know if I make that play. I'm thinking about it, at least I'm thinking Iguana. Long is not the play because Flash and Flee could be obvious. I feel like it's either... I would go Terraclaw here, but it looks like I go Iguana. I'm kind of not sure why I went Iguana there. I guess I predicted him to not Mega Chomp. But again, it just gives Luminami... That is a misplay. I should have just went into Terraclaw there. I think Terraclaw would have been the play. And as you can see, I get completely destroyed here because the Flash and Flee hits the Iguana. The reason why he clicked Flash and Flee on my Tatab is because he knew I was going to switch on a Tatab. He knew I was going to risk Tatab. So it made sense for him to click Flash and Flee and get a little bit of momentum out. And this is the biggest play of the game up to this point as he goes back into Borak. And now we're back to this 50-50. Rogue Assault or Earthquake? I predict Rogue Assault because he now knows that I have Terraclaw in the back, and I feel like he doesn't think I go Duskit this time. I go Duskit this time, predicting Rogue Assault, but my opponent clicks Earthquake. Bye-bye, Duskit. Very bad loss there, as I made the wrong read at the wrong time, but I realized that the Borak is Specialty Gloves. So I take advantage of this opportunity. And I was thinking, do I go Tatab here and then try to go for Timber Thrash and risk a burn? I don't do that, though. I take advantage of him being locked into Earthquake, and I go Terraclaw as I click Bulk Up. And this is actually a very good play because there's one of two options he could have here. He can't go Ronsador because Ronsador just has a bad matchup in the Terraclaw, never OHKOs it. Iguana does nothing to it either. He has one of two options here. Go into Crackalola and risk a Scorching Skin burn, or go Luminami and pivot back into Borak later. I click Bulk Up because that's the best play I can make because he's never staying in on Terraclaw, knowing that he's Specialty Gloves. The decision he makes is go Luminami, making me realize that, I could set up a second Bulk Up here and put myself in a very good position. So I set up Bulk Up again as Luminami flashes and flees back into Borak. Now, despite me being at +2, there is a hidden thing in the game where Boast only affects your original melee attack stat. So despite me being at +2 melee attack, Borak still gets the Boast boost, which is, I don't think is something that a lot of people know about. Now, at +2 melee defense and +2 melee attack, I hope that Terraclaw lives the +1 Specialty Gloves Rogue Assault. And Terraclaw clutches up. And this is ultimately the momentum shifter of the game right here. Now with Terraclaw at +2 melee attack, there's nothing that can really switch into the Terraclaw anymore. The only thing my opponent can do now is, I guess he could have went Crackalola on that play, predicting the Parasitize, but even then, +1 Borak does a lot of damage, even a +2 Terraclaw, so I think it was the right play to go for Rogue Assault there. So, he tries to cut his losses as he goes into Crackalola. Goes into Crackalola to Soul Burst, but unfortunately for him, he was chipped from earlier in the battle. I'm at +2, and I have Cyclone Slam to hit Crackalola. Now, there is the third move option is a toss-up between Baneful Bash and Cyclone Slam, because Baneful Bash is there to hit Surkame and Luminami, but I have Cyclone Slam to hit Lumians like Your Snack and Soul Burst Crackalola, as they are way more impactful in this meta, and with the bulky waters, I could set up bulk ups against. So I'd rather have I would rather have a better matchup versus Soul Burst Crackalola and Your Snack compared to a better matchup versus Luminami and Surkame. So I get the Crackalola KO there, and then there's nothing my opponent can do anymore. Tries to go into Ronsador and hopes Ronsador hits hard enough to KO the Terraclaw, but everyone knows how bulky Terraclaw is. A Arctic Shell Draco Beam is not enough to KO Terraclaw, and Terraclaw just cleans up the game because the only two Lumians my opponent has left is Luminami in Terraclaw. So let's just get to the end of the battle. There's not really much to show here, and yeah, that is it. Terraclaw just cleans up the game. It's back at full health, and that is a win. And that game was all set up because of that Specialty Gloves Borak. Getting the two bulk ups in on Terraclaw proved to be the winning play, and it was able to 5-1 my opponent's team. So finding the time to get the setup up despite losing Dusket in the exchange, it gave my Terraclaw an opportunity to win the game on the spot, and that's why I was able to win this battle. Now, we're into the second battle here, and this might be my favorite one I'm going to be showcasing here, because it's the battle between two Banana Split teams. So, as you can see, both teams are using Banana Split Banuki and Soulburst Dragodyne. So, as I look at his team, he has Gobademic, which is a very anti-meta pick. Cosmere Unleashed, because Cosmere Unleashed is really good on Banana Split teams. Servalan, one of the best revenge killers in the game. Ronsador again, you know, a typical Banana Splits team. Pronsu as an anti-meta pick for Lashent, Danuki, and of course, Soulburst Drago. And it is Soulburst Drago because it's the only potential Loomian on his team that could Soulburst. So, yeah, we know his team. For my Banana Split team has the same type of offense. I mean, Danuki, Soulburst Dragodyne, and Cosmere Unleashed are the same 3 Loomians. But I also have a couple different Loomians. Like, I have Wildfire Landtorch to potentially get rid of Banana Split very easily. Frenzy Nevermare to get a late-game sweep. Luminami to pivot my offensive Loomians on the field. And I have an Emergency Dust Loomian in Zeppelin. So, this battle is very interesting. And something I will just say, if you are facing a Banana Split team, I will just say one thing. Your opponent will always lead with Danuki. Always try to anti-lead the Danuki. Because if they don't lead with Danuki, fine. It's alright. They're not immediately putting up Banana Split. But if they are leading with Danuki and they don't have something to hit it in return, Danuki just sets up enchants, sets up a Banana Split, and could win the game on the bat. There's a reason why Banana Split teams are very powerful right now. It's because of how powerful Danuki is in setting him up. So, the team I was able to bring here makes sense. I bring Wildfire Landtorch. I don't want to bring... I was thinking about leaving Dragodyne behind, but as you can see, you don't want to leave Dragodyne behind in this matchup because it can do a lot of damage to everything. If you're leaving Dragodyne behind in this matchup, you're not going to win many battles. So, I leave Luminami and Zeppelin behind for this battle, and relying on my Banana Split team. Oh, I actually do leave Soulburst Dragodyne behind. So, that's interesting. I actually do leave Soulburst Dragodyne behind. I'm actually shocked that I did this, because it actually does look like a good matchup for it. I think the reason why I did this is because... The reason why I have Luminami is because of the threat of Servalan. If I don't have anything to switch into Servalan, I'm just cooked on the spot. So, that is why I left Soulburst Dragodyne behind in this battle, despite it being one of the best late-game cleaners in the game. So, that's interesting. I did not think I was going to do that. So yeah, Soulburst Dragodyne is left behind in this battle, all because of the threat of Servalan. Which makes sense. You gotta bring your team where you don't immediately lose to a Loomian. So it makes sense that I would do that. And as you can see, I don't lead with Danuki. My opponent does, on the other hand, and I knew he was going to do this. So I counterlead the Danuki with Cosmere Unleashed, threatening either Judgment or Outburst. Now, Judgment is the super effective play here, so it makes sense to go for that. But I go for Outburst, predicting him to switch out, because, I mean, it makes sense, right? Because if he goes for Near Enchantment, I still do a lot of damage. Judgment will never OHKO unless he doesn't go for Enchants, and if he does switch out, Outburst deals the most damage to pretty much everything. But I do actually get caught by surprise here, despite me going for Outburst, trying to predict the switch. Danuki had another trick up its sleeve. It was actually Barter, Heavy Shackles, Danuki, putting my Cosmere out of commish. So even though I did all that damage to Danuki, Cosmere is now the slowest thing on the field for the rest of the game. Because, yeah, that's another move Danuki can have. Barter, Heavy Shackles. The most typical Danuki sets are Ram of Provoke, 2 Screens, and Banana Split. But other moves they can run is Handy Rejuvenate. They can also run Emulate to become your other offensive Loomian. And as in case of this battle, Barter, Heavy Shackles, which can actually disable a critical threat to his team. So I get caught off guard here, but despite having my Cosmere neutered for the rest of the game, the situation is still the same. Danuki is very low in HP, and it's always having the first attack. It's setting up Banana Split. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. Danuki is setting up a Banana Split. I'm going immediately into Wildfire Landtorch, and I want to immediately get rid of the Banana Split as quick as I can. Yes, I am that confident he's clicking split because he's low. He doesn't want to risk it. He doesn't want to switch out because he doesn't want to take another powerful outburst. He's going to stay in, and he's going to place banana split. So, that's what he does here. He goes for the banana split, and say goodbye to Danuki. Job well done. Taking out the Cosmere. And yeah, we now know that it's a 5-on-4. But I now have Wildfire Landtorch in the game. And it's now a 5-on-4, and that's the thing with banana split teams. With banana split teams, you're hoping to win a 5-on-4 while trying to get a threatening Loomian in the game. And in this case, he threatens me with Soulburst Dragodyne, trying to pin me in a situation. Now, I know it seems weird that my opponent goes into Soulburst Dragodyne here, but he's thinking that I want to get rid of banana split. I'm so convinced in getting rid of banana split that burn up is right there. But when I see myself an opportunity to hit a Dragodyne, I see myself as an opportunity to hit Soulburst Dragodyne. And even if he does switch out, saving the Dragodyne for later and getting me potentially stuck into Goggles, I'm not a Specialty Goggles Landtorch, I'm Fire Essence. I can always click Burn Up later in the game. So I go for the Fire Breath. My opponent thinks about it a little bit because it's a very important play. They have other plays they can make. They can go Ronsador. Ronsador can deal a lot of damage, but then again, the threat of Specialty Boots is right there. I could switch into Cosmere, but Cosmere never switches in this situation. So, there's a lot of situations I could go for here, but I'm staying in going for the Fire Breath. He thinks I want to get rid of the Banana Split just because of how threatening it is. But Wildfire Landtorch hits pretty hard. So, he decides to stay in and try to go for the KO. Unfortunately for him, as I go a little bit quicker through this, unfortunately for him, I didn't. I Fire Breathed. Bye-bye, Soulburst Dragodyne. So now, despite him having a banana split up, this battle is now a 5-on-3 as he goes into Vengeance Servalin. So now Vengeance Servalin is in the game, and now this gives me a free opportunity to get rid of the banana split. The reason why I sack Landtorch here is because the rest of his team, you know, Ronsador could always soak a hit, Cosmere Unleashes has a good matchup and can do a lot of damage to it, and Pronsu usually runs the Clutch Plushie or Clutch ability anyway, so that is a job well done. I just get rid of the banana split so I can keep my speed to my Loomians as the Servalin claims a KO on my Landtorch. So it's now a 4-on-3 as I go for the late game Danuki. And this is what you want to do with a Danuki because you never, ever... The thing is, leading with Danuki is way too predictable. It's so predictable. Anyone from a mile away can predict the Danuki lead. It's always good to save it for later in the game because you never know if the opposing team has a way to get rid of hazards or not. And if you look at his ways to get rid of hazards, Gobademic does not have any way to get rid of hazards. It could be Teardown, but that's very uncommon. Unleashed, no way to get rid of hazards. Pronsu, no way to get rid of hazards. Ronsador, no way to get rid of hazards. Banana Split is staying up for the rest of the game, and he has no air types to switch in. So I see this as an opportunity to set up, not only set up near enchantment, but I could also set up Banana Split. So I set up both enchants. Actually, I don't just set up near. I set up both near and far enchantment in case the Servalin switches out. And the Servalin never switched out. He does predict the Banana Split and goes for a rest, but the battle is already too late. Never Crits comes into the game, and I set up way too many times. A Servalin does not do enough damage, and yeah, this battle eventually leads to a forfeit. So yep, overall, not a bad battle by me. I played that battle very well, got rid of his Banana Split, got the lead, got Nevermare set up into the game to potentially win, and he would have won the game as well because the rest of his team would have underspent the Nevermare because of the Banana Split. So that is the second battle. Now the third battle I'm going to show you, this will be the last battle I will show for the video, is going to be with my Haste and Whippledrift showcase. So if you look at Loomy Boy's team, who is a pretty good PvPer, it's a very meta team. Has Trumbull, has Wiki, you know, the typical common Loomians you see, but he also has a couple cheese options in there in Sinogre. Sinogre, Serenite, and Solder are most certainly cheese options and a half. So, those are Loomians I do got to be careful with. And it definitely looks like more of a bulky team. This definitely is a semi-stall team. Because Wiki, bulky. Sinogre, bulky. Senimars, bulky. Luminami, bulky. Searadite, bulky. Swolder, bulky. The only Loomian that even has a little bit of source of offense is Trumbull. And even then, that might not even be a Battle Chimes Trumbull. It could be something else. So it's always something to take into consideration because the Trumbull could be a lot different. Because in another one of my battles, the Trumbull was actually restrictive armor. So you got to keep that into consideration when going for battles, is that the Loomians could be different sets. But on the surface, this looks like a typical semi-stall game. A semi-stall team versus a kind of balanced, more offensive team. So Trumbull, Wiki, Sinogar, Semi-Mars, Luminami, Searadite, and Swolder are his Loomians. Now, the Loomians I bring for this battle is interesting. I bring Tata, Metronet, Tyrex, Whippledrift, and Yursnack into this battle. I leave Landtorch behind. Even though Landtorch is potentially a good Loomian for this battle, he has a Luminami that could switch in every time to a Landtorch and wall it. And while Tsukame can be good, it also just doesn't deal that much damage. And I'd rather have Yursnack in this situation regardless, because Baffle just seems a lot better in this situation. And I predict Trumbull lead, I think. I think I predict Trumbull lead. So I lead Yursnack in case he leads Trumbull. And that's so he doesn't Battle Chime and immediately picks up a KO on the spot. But I don't think he actually leads with Trumbull. I think he actually leads with Swolder. But let's see. I think he led with Swolder in this battle. But let's see. No, he led with Luminami as I led with Yursnack. So we both led with pivots in this battle, which makes sense. Now, I have a couple options here. I had two options. I could either slap down and get rid of an item, or I could baffle and baffle into a better situation. This is minimum speed Yursnack, so I will always be slower than the Luminami. So I can either slap down a Loomian's item coming in, or baffle into a good matchup. I think early in the game, it's better to slap off items because there were no Eclipses, so they're not going to absorb slap down. So we know that his first Loomian on the team is Luminami. He goes for the Mega Chomp and stays in, predicting the Tatam. Unfortunately for the Luminami, it doesn't do any damage whatsoever, and that is no restrictive armor. Going for the slapdown play at the beginning was the best play I could go for, because I was able to get rid of the restrictive armor for Luminami, which is very huge for later in the game, especially when I have Loomians like Tyrex and Tatam. So, very good play on my part. I am thinking about switching in this situation. Now that he went for the Mega Chomp, I predict that he doesn't do it again. I predict him to flash and flee and go into Funny Tatam. So, that is two great plays in a row by me. The reason why I went into the Tatam play after he clicked Mega Chomp, because he did not want to risk the Mega Chomp play again. Now, looking at his team, Poison seems like the right play here, because, I mean, Sinogar is immune to Jungle Jitsu, Wiki can come in for free, Trumbull can't come in because Trumbull is very threatened, Searadite could maybe come in, but even then, it is weak to Jungle Jitsu, so it doesn't want to switch in, but it could switch in predicting Timber Thrash, and of course, there's the Semi-Mars that just simply can't switch in. But he has a Swolder. Swolder is a toxic type, and Swolder is a melee tank that's immune to poison. So, I think about it a little bit. I think about poison for a little bit, and I'm just like, if he has Swolder, I'm screwed. I'm going to go for Jungle Jitsu, and if he doesn't have Swolder, fine. If he has Swolder, I hit it. So I go for Jungle Jitsu in this situation, predicting Swolder to come in. I feel like Swolder just makes the most sense here. And Luminami does not want to risk itself this early in the game, especially after the restrictive armor was slapped off. So I predict Swolder, and would you look at that? He has the funny Swolder guy, and we can see right away that it is a max defense Swolder, as that took barely any damage from Tatab. So I gotta switch out. I don't really have a switch in for Swolder, because Swolder can click Baneful Bash. It's everything with Baneful Bash. Can hit Tyrex with Vital Jab. Can hit Metronet with Parasitize. Yursnack is the only safe swap in for Swolder, and even then, it has to be swapped into Poison. But I have no other play here. I have to switch into Yursnack, because that's the only Loomian that I feel safe to switch into. I don't know which Swolder this is. This could be the Brawn boosting Vital Jab set. So I switch into Yursnack as the safest play, but unfortunately, I was wrong with my read. This is not Brawn Boost, this is Poison. This is the stalling Swolder, unfortunately. So, unfortunately for me, Yursnack is indeed Poison. I think I went for the Slapdown here to get rid of an item. No, I went for the Baffle to pivot out. So, I used Baffle to pivot out of a bad situation. lowering the Swolder's melee attack. And then in this situation, I have an opportunity. My Whipple Drift is a clutch plushie, and now that I lowered the Swolder's lowered the Swolder's melee attack, Whipple Drift is the best play here. I can't go Metronet because it's still weak to Parasitize and we get O-Code. Same with Tata, would get O-Code. If Tyrex comes in, Tyrex just simply doesn't do enough damage. Whipple Drift is the best play to make in this situation. There's no other switch I can make here, and honestly, the best play here is to click Hasten, because you could go for Tempest and potentially get a rank, and potentially get a speed increase, but the reason why I don't go for Tempest here is because the Swolder is not staying in. Even if it does stay in, it's never O-Coing a Whipple Drift, even with a Baneful Bash critical hit. I feel safe to click Hasten here. Not only will this give me a +1, but I could get a speed boost, outspeed everything, and I will still have my clutch plushie activated. In worst case scenario, I get hit, I go down to around 50% of my HP, and I just Tempest the next turn, get another speed boost, and I'm fine. So, Hasten is the best play to make in this situation, no matter what my opponent does. My opponent does not want to poison Whipple Drift because he's at risk of losing a Swolder. And for a stall team, you do not want to lose one of your walls. So he switches out into Senimars, predicting the Tempest. But after a Hasten, despite this being a heavy shield Senimars, the one extra Hasten gives me enough, just barely enough gas, for Whipple Drift to 2-hit KO Senimars. So I'll show you what happens here. I go for the Nature's Force, do around half of Senimar's health, goes for the Charred Claws, does around only a third of my health, but unfortunately gets the burn. There's some stuff in Loomian Legacy that you're not able to control. That is one of them. You cannot control the fact that Charred Claws is burn. You just gotta roll with the punches. Thankfully, it is a burn and not a freeze. But since that was not able to OHKO me, it's not gonna OHKO me in the next attack. So I decided to play risky. Instead of clicking Nature's Force again, I click Tempest. The reason why I click Tempest here is because I feel pretty safe here. If the Senimars rejuvenates, I still do a decent chunk of damage. If he stays in and attacks me, his Senimars will be low and anything can OHKO him. If he goes into Sinogre, Sinogre takes a lot of damage. If he goes into Trumbull, takes a lot of damage. If he goes into Seer Knight, takes a lot of damage. Luminami, lots of damage. There's nothing that could switch into Tempest. There's legit no Loomian on his team that could switch into Tempest. So Tempest is the best play to make in this situation. Senimars would have been the only Loomian to switch into it, and it's already down at low HP. So he's going to switch out. I don't know what he's going to switch into, but he is going to switch out. And now we know that he has Swolder, Senimars, and Luminami. So I don't know what he switches into in this situation, but I know that he's switching. I don't think he's going to stay in, and even if he does, it's a low-risk play. Even if I get credit by Charred Claws and lose Whipple Drift, it just gives me an opportunity to go into something else like Metronet or Tyrex or Tata and claim a body. So I feel safe to do this in this situation. So let's quicken ahead this battle. And he goes into Wiki Wiki, which is the best case scenario because I'm able to click Tempest again and catch the 2-shot on the incoming Wiki Wiki. He stays in here because, again, he has nothing that could switch into Tempest. So he calls his body there. And then he goes into Luminami to hopefully live a +1 Nature's Force. So, will the Luminami live a +1 Nature's Force? Tell me in the comments below, will it live? I think everyone knows what the answer for this will be, because this is, unfortunately, the funny Luminami. So, I barely missed the KO on Luminami, which is brutal. I get Frost Beamed, and Whipple Drift, unfortunately, goes down. I think that was actually a damage roll that I lost in, but it happens. I got Luminami to no HP, and I have a couple decisions. Do I just try to KO the Lumi, or do I go into something and try to set up? I go into Metronet in this situation. So, Metronet is not a bad play in this situation. The reason why it isn't a bad play in this situation is because the only thing that we know that hits him for quad effective damage is Swolder. He could go Seer Knight, but even if he goes Seer Knight, we don't know that yet. The best play is to set up and then just try to do a lot of damage if you can. We already broke through Wiki Wiki, so he's not going to be able to chain any HP back. He could have Trumbull, but Trumbull doesn't deal enough damage. The only Loomian he could potentially go into is Swolder, and even then, that's risky. But Swolder could be counterpoise, and a counterpoise Swolder will be able to OHKO a Metronet. I click Palm. Luminami goes for Flash and Flee. Good play for my opponent to risk Lumi. Pivots out, and he's going to go into Swolder. he's going to go into Swolder immediately and click Counterpoise to OHKO my Metronet. But hold on a second. He's not immediately switching. Look at the time. The time is going down. He's thinking. My Metronet has set up. He could go with the Swolder right now. Right here, right now. Go Swolder. Go Swolder. Go Swolder and click Counterpoise. What this info is telling me, his Swolder is not Counterpoise. The reason why I can tell that his Swolder is not Counterpoise, because if his Swolder was Counterpoise, he would immediately go into it right now in this situation. Even if he doesn't go into it now, it makes me wonder, he must not have Counterpoise. If he had it, he would go right into it right off the bat and catch the OHKO on Metro. But since he's thinking about it, it's making me think, he probably doesn't have Counterpoise on Swolder. And it gets even better because he's still thinking, he's panicking. He's panicking. He's absolutely panicking. He's thinking. He wastes a ton of time. He doesn't know what to do. So much time wasted. And instead of going into Swolder, he goes into Senimars, who's at low HP. I have Soul Burst and Sinister Shackles. So not only is this convincing me that he doesn't have Counterpoise on Swolder, but this is also giving me a free attack on his Senimars. And I click Sinister Shackles, and Soul Burst Metronet, still with one of the coolest move animations in the game, picks up the KO with +1 Sinister Shackles. I mean, look at this move animation. It looks so cool. Catch the OHKO on the Senimars, and he finally goes into Swolder now. But I have no fear. I have no fear, because I know, in fact, that he's not Counterpoise. I know that he's not Counterpoise, and would you look at that? He is not a Counterpoise Swolder. And Soul Burst Metronet pretty much just claims, let's see what his last Loomian is. His last Loomian would have been the Trumbull, but it doesn't matter. That one piece of mind on that Luminami proved to be the turning point of the game, and the Soul Burst Metronet was able to clean up the team for the late game sweep and the win. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this taught y'all on how to play Loomian Legacy PvP a little bit more. I wanted to talk about some of the game states and the context behind each situation, talking about the potential teams that I use and the teams that my opponent uses. The biggest thing about Loomian Legacy PvP is thinking of what your opponent is going to do and not just yourself. Think about what you're going to do, but also think about what your opponent is going to do as well. And I think that can go a very long way of making a lot better decisions when it comes to Loomian Legacy PvP. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see y'all all later. Bye-bye!